Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hello and welcome to the illustrious Golden Pig Awards of Kaldheim. Throughout spoiler season, commanders have been competing for this incredible award. And although there are many worthy commanders from Kaldheim, only one will stand above all and be the Golden Pig of Kaldheim. The winner of this most coveted award will receive the Golden Pig statue. This pure gold statue was made by the finest craftsman known simply as Amazon. This priceless award will be cherished by the Kaldheim commander that truly stands above the rest. And although there are many competitors, there's only one that can truly be known as the Golden Pig of Kaldheim. So first, let's start with the runners-up. So coming in 10th place, we've got Toski, Bearer of Secrets. Toski is our first legendary squirrel, which is adorable, and also it's not your typical mono-green commander. Toski is a 1/1 squirrel that can't be countered and is indestructible, and it costs 3 and a green. Toski has to attack each combat of Fable, and whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you draw a card. So Toski is a mono-green commander that is somewhat reminiscent of Edric, Spymaster of Trest. By getting your creatures through, you can draw an incredible amount of cards. On top of that, Toski is very hard to deal with since it can't be countered and it's indestructible. And the fact that it has to attack each combat of Fable really isn't a downside at all. So with a Toski deck, you're going to want to fill it with a ton of creatures that are really low to the ground and can get through. For example, while there aren't many flyers in mono green, Scrib Sprites is an option. It might just be a 1/1 flyer for a green, but that's perfect for this deck. Because again, each and every single time it gets through and hits your opponent, you're going to get to draw a card. Make sure you keep in mind other forms of evasion though as well. For example, Jukai Messenger has Forest Walk, and that's usually going to be enough to get you through. Chances are at least one of your opponents is going to be playing green and will have a forest to help you out. When it comes to finishing your opponents off, you can turn your small creatures into much bigger threats with something like Beastmaster Ascension. Essentially with Beastmaster Ascension, once you've swung with 7 creatures, all your creatures get +5/+5. So all those tiny and evasive 1/1s are going to turn into big and evasive 6/6s. But now it's time for us to move on to number 9 with Magda, Brazen Outlaw. Magda is a dwarf commander that has a lot of other cool synergies with things like treasures, dragons, and even vehicles. It's just a very unique design for a mono-red commander and one that we really haven't seen yet. She's a 2/1 dwarf berserker that costs 1 in a red, and she has other dwarves you control get +1/+0. She has whenever a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. And by sacrificing 5 treasures, you search your library for an artifact or dragon card and you put that card onto the battlefield, then you shuffle your library. So Magda is an absolute value engine that can pump your team, can give you temporary ramp, and can also help you tutor for very powerful cards. So with this deck, you want to get things started quickly, so you want a lot of low to the ground dwarves like Bloodfire Dwarf. What it does really isn't all that important, but the fact that it just costs a red is huge. Now attacking with your dwarves is one way to make treasures, but there are much safer ways, such as on Dwarven Bloodbroiler. It has tap and untap dwarf you control, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. So this can help you pump a creature and also help you safely tap your dwarves. And another way to safely tap your dwarves comes with vehicles like Smuggler's Copter. Because you can overcrew vehicles, pretty much any vehicle will do. But ones with extra benefits like Smuggler's Copter are definitely preferred. And from there, once you make a ton of treasures, you can sacrifice them to go get some very powerful dragons or other artifacts and take over the game. But now it's time for us to move on to number 8 with Koma, Cosmos Serpent. Koma definitely stands out as a Simic commander for being very different than the typical one that you see. Most Simic commanders care about ramping or card draw or both, whereas Koma just cares about making tokens that it can utilize for different purposes. Koma is a 6/6 serpent that can't be countered and it costs 3 green, blue, blue. It has at the beginning of each upkeep create a 3/3 blue serpent creature token named Koma's Coil. Then it has sacrifice another serpent, choose 1. Tap target permanent, its activated abilities can't be activated this turn, or Koma Cosmos Serpent gains indestructible until end of turn. So each and every single upkeep, including your opponents, you're getting a 3/3. So although Coma is just a 6/6 for 7 mana, by the time it comes back around to you, you're going to have 18 power on the board. And again, Coma allows you to utilize those serpents in different ways. You can use them to control the board, you can use them to protect Coma, and obviously you can use them for attacking and blocking. You can also utilize their power though with something like Elemental Bond. It says whenever a creature with power 3 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So now each and every single upkeep, on top of getting a 3/3 token, you're also drawing a card. And then we can double up our tokens with something like Second Harvest. It's an instant that can come out of nowhere, and it says for each token you control, create a token that's a copy of that permanent. So just before our turn, we can double up our army and then take our opponents by surprise. And of course, there are sea monster synergies that we can use with something like Whelming Wave. It's a board wipe that's going to return all creatures to their owner's hands except for krakens, leviathans, octopuses, and serpents. So while this is going to pretty much bounce all of our opponent's creatures, it's not going to touch any of ours. Again, Coma is a nice refreshing take on a Simic commander. But now it's time for us to move on to 7th place with Agar the Freezing Flame. Agar is an uncommon commander, but its effect is anything but uncommon. It utilizes the new Overkill effect in a very interesting way. It's a 3/3 giant wizard that costs 1 blue-red. It says whenever a creature or planeswalker an opponent controls is dealt excess damage, if a giant wizard or spell you control dealt damage to it this turn, draw a card. So Agar can be taken in a couple of different directions, whether that's giant tribal, wizard tribal, or giant wizard tribal. But another direction, and the one that I would take it, would be a Wrath deck that is focused on drawing a ton of cards and then milling our opponents out. So first off, Agar is dependent on our opponents having creatures, so we can donate them some creatures with something like an Crow and Horse. When it comes into play, an opponent gains control of it, and at the beginning of each upkeep, each opponent makes a 1/1 white soldier creature token. So when their boards are filled with creatures, we can cast something like a Blasphemous Act. It deals 13 damage to each creature, and that's going to be enough to overkill pretty much everything. And again, for each creature that we overkill with this, we're going to draw a card. And we can put that card draw to good use with something like Psychic Corrosion. It says whenever you draw a card, each opponent puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. Now again, there's a lot of exciting directions that you can take this uncommon commander, and this is just one of them. Next up though, coming at 6th place, is another uncommon commander with Finn the Fangbearer. Finn brings back the poison mechanic in a new and exciting way. Finn is a 1/3 human warrior with Death Touch that costs 1 and a green. And he has whenever a creature you control with Death Touch deals combat damage to a player, that player gets 2 poison counters. And as we all know, a player with 10 or more poison counters loses the game. Now, Infect usually comes to top of mind when it comes to dealing with poison counters. But Finn is putting a spin on that and changing it over to Death Touch. It also makes it so that it doesn't matter how much combat damage is dealt to the opponent, they're getting 2 counters regardless. So because of that, you're going to want a lot of low to the ground Death Touchers that you can swing with right away, like Moss Viper. It might just be a 1/1 Death Touch for a green, but again, 5 hits from this and that opponent is gone. And you're also going to want other ways to get your Death Touchers through with something like Bellowing Tangleworm. It's going to give your green creatures Intimidate. So if your opponents don't have any artifact creatures or green creatures, then they're out of luck. And even if they do have blockers, they still might not be safe if they already have a poison counter because of Proliferate. For example, Evolution Sage says whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, Proliferate. So you're going to choose any number of permanents and or players, then give each another counter of each kind already there. So with this, you can just keep stacking more and more poison counters on your opponents that already have them. Regardless, however you decide to poison your opponents, Finn is an exciting new commander that takes poison and Death Touch in a new direction. And now let's move on to 5th place with Kardor Doomscourge. This commander is all about forcing your opponents to attack each other and punishing them when their attacking creatures die. And again, although it is an uncommon commander, its effect is anything but uncommon. It's a 4/3 Demon Berserker that costs 2 black-red, and it has when it enters the battlefield until your next turn, creatures your opponents control attack each combat if able and attack a player other than you if able. And then whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So a go-to-everything ETB on a commander is a very powerful thing. Forcing your opponents to attack each other not only protects you, but it also harms all of your opponents. So goading your opponent's creatures over and over again is crucial for this commander. So a card like Twin Flame that can make a copy of your commander can come in huge. The copy of your commander will die because of the legend rule, but that really doesn't matter because you still get that ETB. Another way to get that ETB again is with something like Malakir Rebirth. It says choose target creature, you lose 2 life until end of turn that creature gains. When this creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. So if our opponents try to deal with our commander, we get it back and we get that ETB again. And of course, a repeatable blink effect like Conjurer's Closet can be huge in this deck. It says at the beginning of your end step, you may exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under your control. A commander that can constantly go to our opponent's creatures can throw a huge wrench into their plans and can set us way ahead. But now it's time to move on to number 4 with Cole the Forge Master. For a long time, Boros has been considered by many to be the weakest 2-color combination. But even though he's just an uncommon, Cole is anything but weak, because in the right deck, Cole has incredible value and combo potential. He's a 2/2 dwarf warrior that costs red-white and has whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return to its owner's hand. On top of that, creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. A commander that can keep getting us back creatures when they die is an incredibly powerful thing, and the requirement for it being a non-token creature that was enchanted or equipped is a very low bar. So if you're looking to break this commander, you want to focus on having creatures that have 0 mana cost. Ornithopter might just be a 0/2 with flying, but the fact that it costs 0 is huge, because it means that if it goes back to your hand, you can just cast it for free again. So we're also going to want equipment that can equip for free as well, like Shuko. Shuko says equip creature gets +1/+0 and it's got equip 0. And then the last piece of this combo engine is going to be a sacrifice outlet like Goblin Bombardment. By sacrificing a creature, it's going to deal 1 damage to our creature or player. So we play our Ornithopter, we equip it, we sacrifice it, we ping something for 1. Ornithopter goes back to our hand, we play it again for free, we equip it for free, then we sacrifice it again and ping for 1. We can do this as many times as we need to take our opponents out. Cole definitely breaks the mold when it comes to Boros commanders by giving us an absurd amount of card advantage, but in its own unique way. But now let's move on to 3rd place with a card that is near and dear to my heart with Narfi Betrayer King. Now, Narfi can be built in a couple of different ways, and Narfi is definitely not the most powerful commander out there. In fact, Narfi is just basically a more expensive reassembling skeleton in your command zone. But it is a commander that can also present you with a unique challenge. It's a 4/3 zombie wizard that costs 3 blue-black. It has other snow and zombie creatures you control get +1/+1 and pay snow, 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 return Narfi Betrayer King from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So yes, you can build this in a snow or zombie tribal direction, but the way that I went about it was trying to use and abuse its ability. Although I figured out 2 of the pieces, I was missing a crucial 3rd one. So I made this episode called Please Help Me Break This Card, and you, the commander community, came through in no time. Within minutes, there were a ton of different ways to break this commander. The 2 pieces that I originally had were Thermal Flux and Ashnod's Altar. Thermal Flux can make Ashnod's Altar into a snow permanent until end of turn. So then when you sacrifice a creature to Ashnod's Altar, you're adding 2 snow to your mana pool. Now, Narfi's ability costs 3 to activate, so I was 1 snow short, but something like a Desecrated Tomb is the perfect final piece for him. Because when Narfi leaves the graveyard, we get a 1/1 bat. And then, like Narfi, we can also sacrifice that to the Ashnod's Altar for 2 more snow mana. So thanks to that, we generate infinite snow mana, get infinite ETBs and LTBs, and infinite bats too. Again, a huge thank you to everyone who helped out with all the combos with Narfi. There were actually so many unique combos that I made an entirely new episode on the combo solutions. So yeah, a commander that the community truly helped me with and I even made 2 episodes on definitely has a place that's near and dear to my heart. But now let's move on to a completely different commander with the commander that came in 2nd place with Bodie McBoatface. Cosima God of the Voyage is an MDFC commander with a God side on one side and a vehicle side on the other side. And the vehicle side is known as the Omen Keel, but I like to call it Bodie McBoatface. This is the very first vehicle commander and it's a very exciting one. The Cosima side is a 2/4 God that costs 2 and a blue. It has at the beginning of your upkeep, you may exile Cosima. If you do, it gains whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control. If Cosima is exiled, you may put a Voyage counter on it. If you don't, return Cosima to the battlefield with X++1 counters on it and draw X cards where X is the number of Voyage counters on it. And then the Omen Kill side is a 3/3 vehicle with crew 1 that costs 1 and a blue. It says whenever a vehicle you control deals combat damage to a player, that player exiles that many cards from the top of their library. You may play land cards from those cards for as long as they remain exiled. So this is essentially a mono blue commander that really cares about lands and landfall. Your vehicles give you access to a lot of your opponent's lands, and then Cosima draws you a ton of cards based on the Voyage counters from those lands. So with this deck, you can focus on vehicles like Skyskiff. It's an evasive vehicle that is cheap to crew, so it can get you access to lands quickly. And then your crew can actually benefit you as well by tapping or untapping. For example, Fallow Sage has whenever it becomes tapped, you may draw a card. And then Arbiter of the Ideal has Inspired. When it becomes untapped, reveal the top card of your library. If it's an artifact, creature, or land, you may put it onto the battlefield with a manifestation counter on it. That permanent is an enchantment in addition to its other types. So by crewing your vehicles, you can gain a ton of value, and by hitting your opponents, you can get value from them as well. Bodie McBoatface is just a really unique and exciting commander with an amazing name. But as exciting as Bodie McBoatface and all the other commanders are, they are not the Golden Pig of Kaldheim. And the winner of the Golden Pig of Kaldheim award is Vega the Watcher. Vega the Watcher is a 2/2 bird spirit with flying that costs 1 white blue. It has whenever you cast a spell from anywhere other than your hand, draw a card. This uncommon commander is a card draw engine that benefits you in a lot of unique ways. There are a lot of mechanics out there that this incentivizes you to utilize. Again, as an uncommon commander, it might not seem like much at first glance, but there's a ton of powerful things that you can do with this. Now, in the actual Vega quick take, I went through a lot of mechanics, but I'm just going to highlight a few here. Obviously, the first mechanic that comes to mind that works really well with Vega is Foretell. So, for example, with Saw It Coming, you can foretell it away for 2, and on a later turn you can cast it for 1 and a blue. Not only do you get a discount on that turn that you cast it, but because of Vega, you're also going to be drawing a card. Another mechanic that works especially well with Vega is something like Flashback. Because of Flashback, you can cast Deep Analysis from your graveyard by paying 1 and a blue and 3 life. And again, because you're casting this from your graveyard and not your hand, you're going to draw with Vega as well. There are also some other fantastic effects like Precognition Field that can help you cast spells off the top of your library. It says you may look at the top card of your library and you may cast the top card of your library if it's an instant or sorcery card. This is card advantage in itself, but again, thanks to Vega, we're going to be gaining even more by drawing cards. Again, there are a ton of interesting and unique mechanics that Vega can help you utilize to the fullest. And that's what makes it the Golden Pig of Kaldheim. Again, a huge thank you to all those commanders out there that competed for this prestigious award. Unfortunately, there can only be one Golden Pig of Kaldheim. But luckily for all those commanders that were not mentioned in this episode, there is still another award up for grabs. So make sure you're on the lookout for the next awards ceremony on the Golden Toilet of Kaldheim. Who will win this most prestigious award? Tune in to find out. But until then, as always, thanks again and have a good one.